It's Red River Week. Yes, indeed. The last time, 365 days ago, Texas beat the shit out of Oklahoma. Those damn Sooners, 49-0. This year's game will probably be a little bit more competitive than that, if I had to guess. We are live high atop, not to steal from Josh Pate, Houston, Texas. Emmy live from Austin, Texas, joining us once again for Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports, episode 22. We'll have multiple episodes this week. Again, I was busy with family festivities this past weekend, so we only had one episode last week. We will have two, maybe three this week, probably only two, though, for OU today. We've got some spicy stuff to talk about in The Athletic. If you are subscribed to The Athletic, there was some really good stuff written about Texas this week. Hopefully stuff that Texas does not read, because Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, guys like that call the types of things people are saying about Texas rat poison. We will get to that here in a minute. To open the show, we will talk about some of the games, including Red River, for Week 6. And then at the very end, we'll be debuting our college basketball segment. We've spun the wheel and we've hand-selected our first team. Very interesting team. A lot of storylines around this particular program at the very end. Welcome, Emmy. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm excited to get into this thing. It's going to be three big games in college football that we're going to talk about. I'm excited.
Absolutely. And we're already Week 6 in college football. Now, the season is going to feel longer than just 12 weeks when it's all said and done. Some teams play 13. There's an extra couple weeks in there before we get to conference championships, but we're getting there. I mean, we're about halfway through the regular season, and for Texas fans, we're hoping that we get more than just the 12 games in the bowl game this year. We're hoping that we get a conference championship game and then either a New Year's Six Bowl or multiple games beyond that. That's what Texas fans have the right to hope for based on what this team has shown so far, and should be hoping for right now based on this team's play. Okay, let's get to our opening topic for today. For the first 10 minutes, I thought I'd just bring this up. I want to get your reaction to some of this stuff. This week, or I think it was just yesterday, Bruce Feldman, really good college football writer for The Athletic, released an article on this Texas football team. And basically, in this article, he got opposing coaches and different scouts across college football, Big 12 coaches, SEC coaches, scouts, people that analyze college football, to talk and give him some quotes on this particular Texas football team. So these quotes, boy, oh boy, wait till you hear these quotes. I thought this was really, really interesting. Very juicy article. I'll send it to you, Emmy, after the show. Let's start with what an SEC coach said about an anonymous SEC coach said about Texas. And again, these are quotes from a half dozen coaches who have either faced Texas this year or have scouted them over the last 2 weeks. And this is from Bruce Feldman on The Athletic. SEC coach, quote, "That is a very impressive roster. They got linemen like Alabama used to have. Both sides of the ball. They beat the shit out of Alabama. They push everybody around. They did whatever they wanted with Baylor. They got speed outside, and their tight end, Jatavion Sanders, is a freak." Quote from the same coach, "I think Sark has learned his lesson. He's running the ball more. He's required toughness. He used to be next play, hurry up. He's learned what it takes. He's hired great coaches. Bo Davis is a great defensive line coach. Kyle Flood is a great offensive line coach. It shows what those guys have done there," end quote. Okay. Another SEC coach. Their defense is dominant, and their D-line is one of the most impressive groups I've ever seen, said a SEC coach. Quote continues from, here's another quote from a Big 12 coach. Their D-line is freakish. They're getting a huge pass rush with 4. Their front 7 is a lot better than last year. That freshman linebacker, number 0, Anthony Hill, is super fast. He's so hard to block coming off the edge. They made Alabama look bad. People blame that quarterback, Jalen Milroe, but they didn't have a lot of guys open, end quote. Okay, we get down to another Big 12 coach. Their O-line is so big and physical, and they move people. Both of their tackles, number 78, Kelvin Banks, and number 70, Christian Jones, had elite movement skills. I also thought their left guard, number 76, Hayden Connor, was also pretty damn good with great movement skills. I think their O-line is the strength of their offense. Their receivers can run and are as good as advertised. Their backs break tackles and are great in space. Close quote. Quote, Sark is the best play caller I've ever faced. He hardly had any tendencies going in, and if he did, he broke them during our game. He really keeps you off balance. They have a great change to make a deep run. They have a great chance to make a deep run. What do you think about those quotes?
I mean, that's a lot to take in there. The one that stood out to me was best D line I've ever seen. That one, this Texas D line is fantastic, and I'm not going to understate what they've been doing. It's been amazing, but ever I feel like that's a bit of a stretch considering that's an SD coach who faced Georgia or saw Georgia do what they did 2 years ago and last year, of course. Here's the thing, though. I think
he might be talking about I've ever seen from Texas. If I had to guess, it's probably what he's saying. But
okay, yeah,
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, the biggest thing though is the O line and the D line are legit. What they're saying is true. They're top in the country, and there's no questioning that at all. Where you question Texas is, can you get consistent Quinn Ewers? That's the only thing. And the last few weeks we've gotten that. And Kansas game, we didn't really need much from him. We just ran the shit out of the football. So that's what a great offensive line affords you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there are probably some hyperbole in these quotes, but I mean, the praise for Texas from both Big 12 coaches who, for the most part, probably hate Texas. I mean, we've seen that on a public scale, but they've watched this Texas team. SEC coaches are giving them high praise. I hope the Longhorns don't read a lot of this stuff because it's just rat poison at the end of the day. But from a coaching perspective and from a conference and SEC perspective, these rival schools, these SEC coaches think Texas is legitimate playoff good. Now, there are certain things you can say about Texas, and there are certain things you can say about Oklahoma to this point. And that's where we'll get into now our sort of first thoughts on this football game between number 12 Oklahoma and number 3 Texas. Both teams 5-0. Texas favored by about a touchdown, -6.5. There are a couple things can be true about both teams. You can say Oklahoma hasn't been tested yet, and that's fair. I think this is their first big test. They've played some fairly good football teams, but I don't think they've been tested to the level that Texas has been tested. They haven't played a game the caliber of, say, Alabama yet. That's a fact. That Josh Pate said this, and I think it rings so true. Even though they're not tested yet, that doesn't disqualify or qualify them from being a great team. Like, yes, they may have not played anybody yet, but that doesn't mean they're not a great team. But it also doesn't prove that they're a great team, right? So I think a couple things can be true about Oklahoma. The statistics say on paper they're a really, really good football team. Are they a great football team? Well, we're going to find that out this Saturday. And from a Texas standpoint, you can say, well, they've played a tougher schedule and they've been tested more than Oklahoma. We think we know more about this Texas team than we do this Oklahoma team. But at the same time, while you can say Texas has been tested more, they've played 3 backup quarterbacks. They played the Kansas backup, they played the Wyoming backup, and they played the Baylor backup. Now, do they probably still win those games? I think so. But, I mean, Dylan Gabriel, to this point, you can make an argument that he'll probably be, if not the best quarterback Texas has faced, the second best quarterback he's faced, and certainly the best one that this Texas defense has faced in a while now. So I think a couple things are true on both sides. You have to acknowledge that right out the gate. I think we're getting a much more competitive football game than we got last year. I think, after a rough year one, I think Venables is doing a really good job with this team so far. Gabriel's playing really good football, albeit against not to the level of competition or talent of, say, a Texas yet. And they're really good on paper everywhere you look. Are they great? Well, we're going to find that out on Saturday. Your opening thoughts. Where's your mind at going into Red River on Saturday?
Well, 2 things. One, I think the game will be won and lost by who gives up the least amount of explosive plays. We've seen it. We've seen the story before, where either Texas or OU gives up, 80-yard touchdown run by Kyler Murray, for example. In this rivalry, that changes a football game. It doesn't matter what the score is. That can change everything. So the big plays, that to me is the difference. The momentum swings are real in the Red River rivalry. That's so hard to say. The momentum swings are legit. They can't be understated here. I think for Texas in particular, first and foremost, you got to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. From there, make Oklahoma consistently execute down the field. 5-yard play, 6-yard play. Just let them dink and dunk you, and then if they're able to drive it down with methodical football, then I feel confident in this Texas team in the red zone getting stops.
Yeah. There's a lot to say here. I'll try to keep it to a minimum because I'm going to do another show probably Friday night or Saturday morning before the game to break this down even further. And on that show, probably Friday night, which I didn't do last week, I'll be doing my prize picks for college football week 6, including this Texas OU game. And I'll be continuing this series of college basketball previews, if you will. So look out for that. I think this starts, first and foremost, I think we have to ask ourselves, what is the path for Oklahoma? Because we know what the path for Texas is, right? I think the path for Texas is, number one, if Texas brings their A game, they will win this football game. Point blank, period. If they bring the kind of defense that they've been playing, And if Quinn Ewers continues to play the type of consistent football that he's been playing, with or without Jatavion Sanders, Texas will win this game. If that offensive line and Jonathan Brooks continues to look as good as it has the past 3 weeks, Texas will win this game. I think for Texas, the key is the keys on defense, T'Vondre Sweat, Byron Murphy. They've been fantastic all year long. We just heard about it in the Athletic article. We've heard about it all season long. We've seen it with our 2 eyes. We saw them absolutely manhandle Baylor. We saw them make an impact against Kansas. They did a very good job stopping the run from the second quarter on after Kansas had success early. We've seen them manhandle Bama for that matter, if you will. I mean, they really controlled that game on the line of scrimmage. One of Oklahoma's weaknesses this year, or at least to this point, is the interior of that offensive line. So I think for Texas, the key is Byron Murphy, T'Vondre Sweat, Vernon Broughton, Alfred Collins, whoever it may be, generate pressure up the middle. Get pressure in the passing game, get hands in Dillon Gabriel's face, make him beat you with his arm, and continue to be good stopping the run. Oklahoma hasn't been a great running team this year. They've been fantastic throwing the football, and I'll get to that in a minute. But they're not an elite running football team, not the Oklahoma teams of past. They can run the football, and they will run it, but they're not elite at doing it. So I think the key on defense is those 2 guys, Byron Murphy and T'Vondre Sweat. If they play the type of football they've been playing so far this year, that will bode well for Texas. Interior line play from a Texas defensive standpoint and an Oklahoma offensive standpoint will be key. And then for Texas, the one thing you can nitpick about this defense so far is they have given up some explosive plays down the field. They gave up one to Kansas to make that game a 1-score game. I think it was a 58-yard touchdown pass. They gave up a long run, first drive of the game against Wyoming. They gave up a couple long passes against Bama. They even gave up a couple 20-plus yard plays against Baylor. They have been, I don't want to say to a worrisome standpoint, I guess, susceptible to explosive plays. But you can catch this defense off guard every once in a while. And if Oklahoma starts to throw the football down the field, especially considering the fact that you might not have Ryan Watts out there, that could be of concern. As you mentioned, the secondary's got to keep these plays in front of them like they did last year. Don't allow those explosive plays. They might get you for one. They might get you for a couple, but you can't have it happening consistently. And I think Pete Kwiatkowski has done an excellent job of making adjustments and not allowing it to happen again if it does happen, at least to this point. So for Texas, keep everything in front of you. Make them beat you death by 1,000 cuts. Because, I mean, so far, Texas has proven they're a very good defense when teams get into the red zone. They figure it out. They don't allow teams to score touchdowns very often. And when they have allowed teams to score touchdowns, it's actually been explosive plays down the field. Teams have not been able to dink and dunk and, go 10 plays, 75 yards a whole lot against this Texas defense. That doesn't mean it can't happen on Saturday. They've got some really good players at receiver. I don't think they're A.D. Mitchell or Xavier Worthy, but they're really good, highly recruited college football players. They have a good tight end, and Dillon Gabriel is a very good quarterback. I don't know that he's on Quinn Ewers' level, but he's a very good quarterback. And to me, from an Oklahoma standpoint, this game comes down to Dillon Gabriel, period. Now, they need to be able to run the football to a certain extent, better than they have in the past. And these receivers will need to make some plays down the field. But the reason I bring up Dillon Gabriel is because so far in his career, he's eaten up bottom feeders and average teams. It's been even the slightly above average teams and the really highly ranked teams that have been his kryptonite. He's played 7 ranked teams so far in his career, dating back to his days at Central Florida. Back in 2020, albeit against a really good Cincinnati team, a team that was ranked number 7 at the time. They lost that game 36-33. They put up a good fight. He went 26 of 49, 240 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Not the worst game in the world, certainly, but he only completed 53% of his passes and had a 110 efficiency rating, which is what they call it in college. Average for a college quarterback these days is around a 155. So certainly not. It's different from an NFL rating. Later in that year, he played number 16 BYU, only completed 46% of his passes, and had a 101 rating, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, only threw for 200 yards. Last year, as he was hurt all of 2021, comes back last year at OU. Of course, he was out for the Texas game last year, so this will be his first time playing Texas. Number 19 Kansas, they actually won that game, and he did play well that game. He had a good game against Kansas. He completed 69% of his throws for over 400 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick, and he had a 160 efficiency rating, which for a college quarterback is really good. That 110 and 101 stuff isn't going to cut it. I mean, Caleb Williams is putting up efficiency ratings of over 200. That stuff's not going to cut it, especially in this game. He played Oklahoma State last year. Wasn't great, but wasn't terrible. Completed 50% of his passes, 2 touchdowns, a pick, a 115 efficiency rating. Again, not going to cut it against Texas. And then played Florida State last year in the bowl game. 14 to 24, 58% completion, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, a 157 rating, which is actually pretty good. If he does that against Texas, they might have a chance. But what they really need, and what this is all to bring up, is they need the Kansas version of Dillon Gabriel to win this football game, in my opinion. They need him to be efficient. They need him to complete those passes. They need him to throw the football down the field. You'd like for him to not turn the football over, but I think this OU defense is improved, and so if you do, it's not the worst thing in the world. But they need a really good showing from Dillon Gabriel if they want to win this game. And then from a defensive standpoint, they've got to find a way to get in Quinn Ewers' face, because to this point, outside of that first half against Rice, where inexplicably the Texas offensive line just decided not to block or couldn't block for whatever reason, this Texas O-line has not – I mean, they've kept Quinn Ewers pretty clean up until this point. So that's my breakdown of the game. I hesitate to give a prediction, but what I will say is right now I'm leaning – I will ask for your prediction, but right now I do think this is going to be a closer game throughout. I think Oklahoma is improved. Texas will get a bigger test at quarterback. I think Texas, this will probably be around a 7 to 10 point ball game throughout. And I think Texas will probably end up winning this game by around 10, 13 points. A lot closer than last year, a lot more competitive than last year. That's kind of where I'm at right now. Could change by Friday, depending on what we hear about some of these injuries. Sark will have his last press conference of the week tomorrow, where we'll get more updates on, say, Jatavion Sanders and on Ryan Watts. But yeah, I mean, Oklahoma's much improved. I think this might be the first time we see this matchup this year. I think we could very well, no matter who wins this game, get a rematch in December in Arlington for the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, definitely. And to put it simply, I'm picking Texas to win this game, but I mean, do I think it'll be competitive? Yeah, definitely. I think um, Texas eventually their line play is gonna, you know, break down this Oklahoma team. We saw SMU run on them all over the place. We saw, here and there, like all throughout this season so far, teams run on them. That defensive line for Oklahoma, I have some questions about it. The strength of the defense is in the secondary, though. So um, I think line play that's the strength of this Texas roster. And if they want to win this game, they got to be dominant, and I think they will.
Yeah. Okay. Again, more to come on this game and more on Friday and or Saturday. But for now, we're going to move on to our second game. We have two SEC games to discuss real fast. This one is interesting to me. Number 11, Alabama, favored by 2 at Texas A&M. And I actually agree with Josh Pate on this one. I do think this is Alabama's toughest test remaining on their schedule. I know they still have LSU. I know they still have Tennessee. But I do think this is truly their biggest test left. It's going on the road at a place that has given them trouble past couple times they've been there. And A&M has figured some things out since losing to Miami. And they will be able to match guy for guy like Texas was able to on the line of scrimmage. Their line play has been really good this year. It was that secondary and some tackling issues that really did them in, along with a couple turnovers that did them in against Miami. But looking back on it so far, Miami has looked like a pretty good football team. I don't know where they really rank in the ACC. I don't know that I'd put them ahead of North Carolina. I don't know that I've put them ahead of – I certainly wouldn't put them ahead of Florida State. But they look like a top 25 solid football team. That's not a terrible loss at this point. And Texas A&M with the 12th man and that crowd has given Bama and Nick Saban their fair share of issues over the year. Alabama, albeit, since Texas and since that USF game, has looked more like Alabama. A lot of people were quick to kind of write them off after seeing how they played against USF. And, I mean, there was reason to kind of question things at that point. I still have my questions about this Bama team. They could still end up losing 1 or 2 more games, maybe even 3 more games if things just go directly south. But I actually think they've figured some things out offensively. They've looked better the past couple weeks. They put up 40 on, I think it was Mississippi State, either last week or the week before. They're running the football with Jace McClellan and Roydell Williams. I think their passing game is still, I mean, it leaves a lot to be desired, but against an A&M secondary that at times has looked suspect, maybe they can get some things going in this game. Again, it's all about Jalen Milroe. I do think, though, from an A&M perspective, what Bobby Petrino's doing with that offense, with the weapons they have, and Evan Stewart and Aniyah Smith and their tight end, they can be effective even with Matt. Who's their backup? God, I'm blanking. Max Johnson. I think they will take some shots down the field. I think they will keep this game close. They're going to play physical. If you're Bama, you can't have the procedural penalties. You can't have those pre-snap penalties in this environment. Once again, you got to establish the run and kind of scheme this offense to Jalen Milroe's strengths, which I think Tommy Rees has done a better job of the past couple of weeks. I don't know who wins this game yet. I'm leaning Bama. I think they'll find a way, but I don't know. What do you think?
Um, it's hard to say. I think Max Johnson in his career has been a solid passer, but has had turnover issues. That's where I really hesitate right now. I think if they had Connor Wayman, I would feel a lot more confident in Texas A&M's chances. But without being able to trust in your quarterback to take care of the football, what's going to be the game plan here? I just want to see if Texas A&M is going to be willing to open this thing up against the Alabama defense that has given up some big plays in the deep passing game, like we saw against Texas, like we saw a little bit here and there against Ole Miss, a little bit of lesser extent, really, but against Texas, they gave up the big play over the top, and it's there. But will Texas A&M be able and be willing to take those shots down the field? Is my big question.
Yeah. I'm leaning Bama.
Yeah.
I don't know where this game goes, but I do think it's a big test for Bama.
Yeah.
On the road, place where they've struggled. I think Max Johnson and that A&M offense will take some shots. They can't turn the ball over. This has been a Bama defense that has played particularly well the past couple weeks since that Texas game, and we'll see what happens. It's going to be a physical battle, probably on the lower scoring side. I could see like a 27 23, 27-20 type of game. We'll see where it goes, though. Okay, there's another game in the SEC that is really, really, I think, interesting. Keep your eye on this week. Number 20, Kentucky, and Mark Stoops' team going to Athens to take on Georgia. Favored by, right now, 2 touchdowns, minus 15. What are your thoughts?
I don't really know what to think of Georgia right now. I'm just I'm skeptical. I'm not gonna lie. I don't want to, overreact. I don't want to count them out or anything. But there are questions there. They're not defending the run as well, and they're not running the football as well. Their offense, I think, is a little bit too reliant on Brock Bowers. Coming in and saving the day. I think against a more, I guess more competent defenses. Um, I think we'll be able to take away a Brock Bowers and not let him dominate the way he did in that fourth quarter against Auburn in a really inexplicable type of way, if you ask me. Just running wide open all over the place. But the thing is, though, will Kentucky be able to rise to the occasion in a road environment? I mean, against the number one team in the country, I really don't know. I don't know. Kentucky has been running the football well. Kentucky has been stopping the run well. But will it translate over into a ruckus environment in Athens? And my answer is I don't really know. I think maybe for a half, maybe for a quarter, but I think Georgia will end up pulling this thing out.
Yeah, the question to me about this game is, will Devin Leary make the necessary throws on third down in that environment with Georgia's pass rush? And can Kentucky convert red zone trips into touchdowns? You have to score touchdowns to beat Georgia. You can't kick field goals, of course. I mean, that's common sense.
Yeah.
You have to show a commitment to running the ball. Whether you're effective or not, you have to show that commitment. Devin Leary, you got to keep this, in third and medium, third and short. And Devin Leary's got to make those accurate on-time throws on third down to a good Kentucky receiving corps. It's nothing special, but it's good. This is a good offensive line. Kentucky's just a solid program, and they're showing that. They just beat down Florida. They're likely, in my opinion, going to get up for this game, given that it is Georgia. Everyone gives Georgia their best shot. I do think Kentucky, if I had to put my money on this game, I would bet Kentucky to cover. I don't know, and I can't say definitively that I would pick Kentucky to win. I think Carson Beck is playing not elite, but he's playing good enough. And look, they might be too reliant on Brock Bowers, but I mean, until it doesn't work for them, they're going to continue to do that, right or wrong. And Brock Bowers is the type of player that can win a game. He's worth probably a touchdown. He's that kind of player. He's game changing at that tight end position. I believe they just got Ladd McConkey back as well at the receiver position. Now you're right. They're not running the football as well as they have in the past. And they're probably, I don't know the exact stats, but they're not really stopping the run like they have in the past.
Yeah, 67th in the country.
But it's Kirby Smart. They still have better players than Kentucky does. And at the end of the day, I mean, it was going to be hard. It was going to be a tough ask for Georgia to not only win every single game, but to be as dominant as they have been every single game the past 2+ years. I mean, it just wasn't possible with a new quarterback, with a new coordinator on offense. They did lose Todd Monken, so that's another adjustment that they've had to make. And with some turnover offensively, they might not be as dominant this year. They might not even end up as the number one team in the country at the end of the day. But they're still Georgia, and I would pick them to win this game at home, although I think it'll be within 2 touchdowns at the end of the day. Now, whether that's Kentucky scoring a touchdown late or kicking a field goal late to get inside that spread, I don't know. But I do think Kentucky covers this spread. I think they're a solid enough program with good enough players to keep this game close. If South Carolina can do it, who did Georgia play last week? Gosh, why do I? If the teams that we've seen so far can do it, then I think that Georgia will win this game. Okay. Or I think Kentucky can keep this game close. I'm not quite sure where Emmy went. So with all that being said, that's going to do it for Week 6 games. Again, I'll get more into these games on Friday night when I'll give you some prize picks, and I'll go deeper into Red River. Again, this is a Texas-based show. 2 or 3 times a week. We talk a lot about Texas. We talk a lot about other things related to college football. Live on the Raw Prospect Podcast YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you to whoever is watching. We can talk some Division II. Maybe not tonight since it's 11:30, but we can talk about it on our next show. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to wrap it up right here and just save college basketball for next time. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you on Friday. Peace out. Hook 'em horns.